Hi, I'm Ashot. I call this episode Children Are Not Hamsters. Children are wonderful. And as we know, the wonderful wears many faces. So there are easy children and there are difficult and unmanageable ones. These are the ones who from birth constantly screaming or acting up. They don't listen. They do whatever they want. They constantly act out of spite. They refuse to go to bed on time. They get hysterical if you take away their smartphone. And without a tablet, it's simply impossible to feed such children. And since our energy isn't limitless, because of such children, you end up distancing yourself from your partner as well. After all, you give the best of yourself to the kids. Well, that's just the way it is. Nothing can be done. Some parents get an angel, others get a monster. Some are lucky, others are not. Isn't it right? Let's give it a shot. A long time ago, I attended parent-teacher meeting at my older son's school. But I still remember the speech of an elderly lady invited there as a psychologist for the parents and her short but rather bold talk. Some parents she made leave the room immediately. Others listened with interest and some even took notes. The woman claimed that absolutely everything that happens with children is a direct or indirect, but definitely a consequence of the actions of their parents, period. She said that the parents are like sculptors and children are like soft clay. If you want, you sculpt an angel. If you want, you sculpt a monster. She also said that children are like a blank sheet, like a new book whose chapters have not yet been written. Yes, she said, every child has their own character, reactions, emotions and values. However, so-called lack of sense, disobedience, capriciousness, nervousness, daily routine, nutrition and everything else parents usually complain about are created by the parents themselves, whether they realize it or not. That's why she was convinced that some parents would be better off getting a hamster or a guinea pig. After all, a child is probably the most important and responsible project in life which must be properly organized. Such parents, she said, need to understand not everything is subject to humans' will, and if a child has appeared, then a lesson has appeared that must be learned. However, she said not all parents recognize the lesson in the child and do not even begin to study. And in old age, such parents are often dissatisfied or even outraged by how their children turned out. Then the woman spoke about the school. In her opinion, school is not just an educational institution where a student pragmatically fills their head with knowledge for the future career. Most of this information, she said, unfortunately never becomes true knowledge. And today, by the way, she would certainly add that most such careers with knowledge are increasingly being replaced by artificial intelligence. Then she spoke about the formation of personality within the school walls and the class community. It is at school that a student lays down a huge portion of values for life, encountering for the first time in real life with strength and weakness, aggression and kindness, honesty and lies, love and hate, intelligence and stupidity. The role of the parents, she said, is to constantly listen to and hear their children. In conclusion, the lady said that the task of parents is pretty simple: to create the most favorable conditions for the independent development of the child and for achieving their goals in life. If the family succeeds in this, the child is well fed, clean, healthy, and there is a harmony and happiness in the family. One of the fathers, apparently intrigued by the elderly lady, could not help but exclaim emotionally, "But how to create these very favorable conditions in the family?" And who is the number one priority in a family of dad, mom, and child? The psychologist lady shouted out sharply and loudly. A rustle of voices swept through the parents, but the man who had asked the questions calmly replied, "Of course the child, that's obvious." The elderly lady seemed to be waiting for the daddy mouse to fail into her trap, because now she practically shouted, "Nothing is obvious to you, my dear. The number one priority is mom and dad and their love. Only then comes the child." Now, the woman mentioned the book by Anatoly Alexandrovich Nekrasov, a Soviet writer, psychologist, and philosopher. The main idea of his brilliant book, Mother's Love, emotionally and vividly emphasizes: true happiness in the family begins with harmony and love between the parents. Only when a man and a woman are happy with each other, when respect, warmth, and mutual attraction lives between them, does the very space of love arise in which the child can truly grow up free, happy, and independent. Nekrasov puts not the mother's self-sacrifice for the child in first place, but the woman's care for herself and her relationship with the man. Only in such an atmosphere of love and respect does the child feel protected and at the same time receives an example of healthy family relationships between mother and father for their future life. If the mother dissolves in the child, forgetting about herself and her husband, this leads to imbalance and destroys family harmony. At this point, a woman couldn't hold back. "So what exactly should a good mother do?" The lady psychologist immediately replied, "A good mother is first and foremost a good woman. She must love and respect the father of her children. Love, be desirable, soar on the wings of happiness, give warmth, and thereby create the space of love. It is precisely the happiness of the parents with each other that is the foundation for the child's happiness. Only then, when there is love and harmony between the adults, true happiness comes for the child." Smiling as I recall the elderly lady, I want to end this episode with my favorite English folk proverb, widely known in pedagogical literature. "Don't raise your children. They will still be like you. Raise yourself."